The wheel within the wheel, wheels within wheels. Such is the nature of biblical chronology, and especially the prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 4. We hear of wheels within wheels in Ezekiel's vision of chapter 1. Now we will look at the wheel within the wheel of chronology. In Ezekiel chapter 4 and verse 4, it says, "Lie also upon thy left side, and lay the iniquity of the house of Israel upon it, according to the number of the days that thou shalt lie on it, thou shalt bear their iniquity. For I have laid upon thee the years of their iniquity, according to the number of days, 390 days. So shalt thou bear the iniquity of the house of Israel. And when thou hast accomplished them, lie again on thy right side, and thou shalt bear the iniquity of the house of Judah. 40 days I have appointed thee, each day for a year." How do the Jewish chronologists interpret this passage? Let's take a look at Eliezer Shulman's book, The Sequence of Events in the Old Testament. You see on the second to last page of his book, Ezekiel 4:5, the 390 days. We learned in Seder Olam that the Israelites sinned during 390 years from the time they entered the land until the time they were exiled. Other commentators, in other words, Radak, count 241 years from the time Jeroboam assumed the throne until Hoshea, son of Elah, was exiled. And in the time of the judges, 111 years, and the rest are unclear. These are the 390 years I found in the responsa of Rabbi Joseph, head of the academy. The 10 tribes sinned from the time of Joshua until Sennacherib exiled them from Samaria as follows. In the time of the judges, 8 years under Cushan, 18 under Eglon, 20 under Sisera, 7 under Midian, 18 under the Ammonites, 40 under the Philistines, totaling 111. And from Micah until the ark was captured in the time of Eli, 40 years, totaling 151. Rashi, Ezekiel 4:6, 40 days. The punishment of the house of Judah. From the time the 10 tribes were exiled until the destruction of Jerusalem, the house of Judah sinned 40 years. 22 years of Manasseh, of whom it is written that he did as King Ahab of Israel had done. 2 Kings 21:3. And Ahab ruled for 22 years. And 2 of Ammon, and 8 and 11 of Jehoiakim, and Ezekiel's prophecy was told in Zedekiah's 5th, totaling 40. Altogether, 430 years, and after the prophecy, 6 years. Seder Olam, translated and with commentary by Heinrich W. Guggenheimer. Lie on your left-hand side, and put the sin of the house of Israel onto it. And I shall give unto the years of their sins, by the number of days, 390 days. That proves that Israel was enraging the Holy One, praised be He, 390 years from the time they entered the land until they left it. When you will have finished these, lie a second time on your right-hand side, and carry the sin of the house of Judah for 40 days. This teaches that for 40 years the house of Judah were enraging the Holy One, praised be He. From the time the 10 tribes were exiled to the destruction of Jerusalem, 430 years in all. And if we look in the commentary here, the 40 years of the rebellion of Judah after the fall of Samaria is composed of the 22 years of Manasseh's sin, 2 years of Ammon, 11 years of Jehoiakim, and the remaining 5 years must be of Zedekiah, and the date from the time that he broke his oath of loyalty to Nebuchadnezzar. Here's how Eliezer Shulman tallies up the years of iniquity. 8 years subjugation to Cushan, 18 years subjugation to Eglon, 20 years subjugation to Sisera, 7 years subjugation to Midian, 18 years subjugation to the Ammonites, 40 years subjugation to the Philistines. And, for a strange reason, he includes the years of Eli, 40 years of Eli. Then 241 years for the kingdom of Israel, to the destruction of the kingdom. Those are the 390 years, according to Eliezer Shulman. And for the 40 years of Judah, 22 for Manasseh, 7 for Ammon, 11 for Jehoiakim, Zedekiah before the prophecy, 5, and 6 after the prophecy. So these are supposed to add up to 390 years, plus 40 years. This is based on Seder Olam. So this is the Jewish position on the prophecy. This is what I would call the big wheel, the main wheel. Let us now look at the small wheel. The small wheel comes from the Christian chronologies. Josephus says concerning the 18th year of Josiah, over here in section 2, he says that the prophecy of Jadon took effect after 361 years. That's 361 years of the era of the divided kingdom, showing that Josephus has a source or support for the small wheel of the two wheels, just as we read about the big wheel in Seder Olam. Here Ussher shows that he holds to the little wheel under section for the year 3030, 975 BC. From the beginning of this idolatrous worship and public demonstration of God's judgment in that place, we are to reckon the 390 years of the iniquity of Israel as spoken by Ezekiel. So this is the traditional Christian interpretation of Ezekiel chapter 4. And as I mentioned in another video, Ussher confesses that he only came out to 388 years in his calculation because it was not exact. And we see here that Floyd Nolen Jones, in his chronology, applies Ezekiel 4 through 5 the same way, starting with the burning of the temple, plus 390 years equals 976, minus 1 equals 975. So exactly like Ussher, he comes up with 390 years between these 2 points. So we see that the Jewish commentators come up with the big wheel of the 390 years, and the Christian commentators come up with the small wheel of the 390 years. The big wheel actually encompasses the 390 years and the 40 years, and explains them out to the actual sin periods of Israel and Judah during the years they actually sinned. Whereas Ussher and Floyd Jones use a secondary interpretation of the passage. We will find that both systems, both wheels, work together to give us an accurate chronology going all the way back to the Exodus. This chronology, the dated events of the Old Testament, being a presentation of Old Testament chronology, by Willis J. Beecher. Beecher has almost exactly my solution in the Scroll of Biblical Chronology for the Divided Kingdom, 982 BC. And we see that he counts the era of the divided kingdom over here in the last column. Anno division, that's what this is, the disruption of the kingdom. Let's see how many years he counts. He comes to 361 years, almost on the 18th year of Josiah. Very close. In my chronology, this is exact. And we see that he comes to 390 years of the captivity. In the 5th year of the captivity, just as it says in Ezekiel chapter 1. For some reason, he hasn't put down the 30 years from the 18th year here. But we see that he's got an exact 390 years here. So this is the small wheel of the wheels within the wheels. All right, on page 177 of the Scroll of Biblical Chronology and Ancient Near Eastern History, I show exactly how to count up the years for the sin of Israel. As we saw before in Eliezer Shulman's book, the Mesopotamian servitude accounts for 8 years, the Moabite servitude for 18 years, the Canaanite servitude for 20, the Midianite servitude for 7, Abimelech's idolatry, 3 years. This was missed by the Jewish commentators. The Ammonite servitude, 18 years. The Philistine servitude, number 1, 40 years. And then the Philistine servitude, number 2, 20 years. This also was missed by the Jewish commentators. Kings of Israel, 256 years. The total is 390 years. And then for the sin of Judah, instead of 22 years, as claimed in Seder Olam, it's actually 25 years. Under Ammon, 2 years. Jehoahaz to the exile, 13 years. Total, 40 years. Let us now look at the small wheel of the 2 wheels of Ezekiel's prophecy, the wheel within the wheel. Here's the 390-year cipher, and here's the first year of this era of the division of the kingdom between Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And the kingdom divided in the fall of 983. So this is the first year of the divided kingdom. Our first benchmark in this era comes in the reign of Asa, where it gives the 35th year of the kingdom of Asa, equivalent to his 15th year, and the 36th year of the kingdom of Asa, equivalent to the 16th year of the king himself. We have a possible clue or a possible benchmark in the age of Yehudah, the high priest, when he died at age 130, son of 130 years. Here we have 361 years in the 18th year of Josiah, exact. Here we have the 390th year in the 5th year of the exile, 30 years from Josiah's Passover Reformation in 593 BC. Okay, that's the small wheel. Now let's look at the big wheel. 8 years for Cushan, 18 years for Eglon of Moab, 20 years for Jabin of Hazor. We see that the accumulative total is 46 years here. 7 years for Midian. We see that the cumulative total is 53 years. 3 years for Abimelech. 18 years for the Ammonites. The accumulated total, 74 years. 40 years for the Philistines. Accumulated total, 114 years. 20 years for the second Philistine oppression. Accumulated total, 134 years. The sin era picks up again in the 4th year of the divided kingdom. This is because, according to Chronicles, they walked in the law for 3 years before rebelling. Jeroboam's idolatry was introduced in the 3rd year of the divided kingdom, and this is when Judah was also tripped up by this idolatry. So we start counting 135 and so on. The orange column. The 390th year comes to an end just prior to the 1st year of Hezekiah during his Passover Reformation. What happened was that the king of Judah decided to invite the northern kingdom to the Passover, and apparently enough of them listened that the Almighty considered this a repentant act. So the 390 years end here. However, the repentance was temporary, for the most rebellious were carried off a few years later by the king of Assyria. But many other people and the people of the land were left in the land until the end of 65 years, as before discussed. And they were not carried off immediately by the king of Assyria. But 65 years later, or at the end of the 65-year era, Esarhaddon carried off the remnant of Ephraim. 40 years for the sin of Judah. The first 25 come during the reign of Manasseh, and dovetail with the end of the 65 years and Esarhaddon's invasion. Years 26 and 27 come under the king Ammon. Years 28 and so on come under Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, and Jehoiakim, and immediately ensues the exile. Year 1 of the exile in 597, the middle deportation. So we see that the big wheel and the little wheel dovetails together to give us the chronology of Israel. It is placed cryptically in the text, and we see that the Jewish chronologers figured out the big wheel, and the Christian chronologers figured out the small wheel. However, neither figuring was exactly accurate. Both wheels need to go together to make it exactly accurate, and this is explained in the scroll of biblical chronology and ancient Near Eastern history. Everything works together exactly to the exact year between the two systems of interpretation.